Everyone is talking about DeepSeek, a Chinese AI startup that has taken the world by storm. According to experts, DeepSeek's latest AI model outperforms some global industry-leading models, but was made at a fraction of the cost. Keenly following DeepSeek's entrance into the global tech industry are African AI startups, investors, researchers, and policymakers. So this week on the program, we discuss DeepSeek's breakthrough and what it means for AI in Africa. I'm Beatrice Marshall. Welcome to Talk Africa. We have a lot to unpack, so let's now bring in our panel of experts. Joining me here in Nairobi in studio, Alfred Ongere, founder and CEO, AI Kenya. In Accra, Ghana, Rashida Musa, CEO, Ralma, Africa AI integration firm. And joining us from Beijing via Zoom, Edgar Perez, AI consultant. A very warm welcome to you all, and thank you for joining us in this discussion. Alfred, my starting point to this discussion is the shockwaves that the Chinese startup DeepSeek has sent through the global tech sector with the release of an AI model whose capabilities are said to rival the creations of Google and OpenAI. Why is it causing a buzz around the world?
This is because this model has proved that you are able to make massive breakthroughs in AI research in terms of building models that are more efficient and use less compute. And if you look at the business model of organizations like NVIDIA, which are one of the largest chip manufacturers and suppliers in the world, they always sell and they always say that if you want to build more powerful models, more smarter models, you need more compute, you need massive compute. But DeepSeek was able, with a small budget of $5 million, they were able to really make massive breakthroughs that would be compared to a company that would be spending about $500 billion for the same breakthroughs that they've achieved. So this has really affected valuation. From the user side, users have really responded in a very positive way because they find that this particular application, this particular use case from DeepSeek is giving them better results compared to other models such as ChatGPT from OpenAI. This has caused many companies in the US to now start changing their direction and start sort of rearranging their investments.
Right. So, Alfred, I want to understand one other aspect of this DeepSeek model, because there is the whole question of it being open source. Why does that matter? What exactly is open source?
Open source is a principle that has really contributed to many breakthroughs in science and technology. So open source means you're working on certain innovation and you want to share your innovation with others. So you have to share the methodology of how you built your solution. You have to share the parameters of how you build your solution. And then you have to specify the license in terms of can other people build upon what you have released and to what extent. Can they use it for commercial means or not? So every open source breakthrough has a licensing aspect to it that allows you either to use the innovation purely for your own research purposes, or you can also use it commercially. So for DeepSeek, their latest innovations around the models that they're building, they're letting other people to be able to still be able to build upon it and also use it for commercial purposes. And you know the business model for OpenAI over the years, they started as a non-profit, but very soon over the years they had to shift their business model to a for-profit organization, and that meant that the research and the scientific breakthrough that they were working on were now being offered on a commercial basis. So this is really causing a lot of disruption in the open source world, particularly for OpenAI, because now it means that there's a more powerful model out there that is cheaper and more efficient than what they're providing.
Let me come to you, Edgar Perez. Why is it causing a buzz?
If you think about the emergence of DeepSeek, there was a belief in the past that the US had a certain leg up in terms of advancements in AI. People thought about 1 or 2 years. the emergence of these six actually demonstrated that, in fact, that leadership wasn't that much, because the model developed by DeepSeek is actually in many different ways more efficient than models that actually are very popular today. Not only that, the cost of operation for training and operation of these models is actually much, much lower compared to the big models that require a lot of investments. In that regard, we can think about this new emergence as something that was a surprise for companies, not only in the US, but all over the world, causing a shockwave in the AI industry.
Rashida, let me bring you in here, because clearly this is causing a lot of unease in certain sectors. How do you see DeepSeek, though, influencing the global AI race, and what exactly would the implications be?
I see it implicating the global race in a space whereby the techniques that were used in training the model, typically in traditional models like Anthropic, Gemini, and ChatGPT, we see reinforcement training when training the model in inference, right, which is the response in which the model returns back what it wants to, its answer, essentially. And that requires a lot of human feedback and a lot of computing power. But what we've seen with DeepSeek is that they've implemented several different ways of doing that. For instance, GRPO, which is Group Relative Policy Optimization, which essentially makes the AI think for itself and challenge itself on its own thinking. So sometimes we've even seen the model have an aha moment and revert back and restart the question again. This allows the model to actually have a genuine way of reasoning. Additionally, what has been really amazing is, MOE and MLA, which are ways that the machine is rewarded essentially for problem solving. So that we have a reward system now that is inputted into the system, so it tries its best as it knows that there's something for it at the end. And then additionally, there's a way that normally, think of it like a library. So if I ask ChatGPT a question, it has to go through the entire library before it gives me, let's say I'm looking for a book on Ghana. It has to go through the entire library before it can give me that response in Ghana. But what DeepSeek has been able to do is now, I can now ask a specific expert. So they've segmented the model into different experts. So there's the Kenya expert, the Ghana expert, the China expert. And so since I'm asking a question relative to just Ghana, it is just going to ask Ghana directly. So meaning the inference is much faster, and also it's using less compute and less energy, which is very huge, especially when you're thinking of countries. I mean, we're talking about the two tech giants, the United States and China. But what about other countries that just don't have the capacity to build these large models or have this accessibility to energy? This is absolutely revolutionary.
Right. So Edgar Perez, let me come to that issue that Rashida has raised on the two tech giants, the U.S. and China. U.S. President Donald Trump said DeepSeek should serve as a wake-up call on the need for the U.S. tech industry to be more laser-focused on competing to win. Now, look at this in the context of the U.S.-China tech race. What does DeepSeek's entrance now signify?
Well, certainly, I think it is a wake-up call. But let's remember, we are really in the early stages of what's going to be the evolution of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is going to be prevalent in the future, but not tomorrow, not in next year, but in the next 10, 20, 30 years. The same impact that electricity had in the world, it's going to be felt equally by leveraging artificial intelligence, but an intelligence that's going to be as smart or more than humans. LLMs, the technology that we're talking about today, it is still the early stage of AI. It's a proto-AI. So from that standpoint, innovations will come. Not only from China, from India, from Africa, from South America, even from the US. And those are going to be wake-up calls for leading companies that could be American or from any company. If you don't have the latest research, if you don't have the latest innovation, you're going to be always at risk of being disrupted. And that's what is happening at this stage of AI. Obviously, we thought that AI, Anthropic, Gemini were the most advanced models out there. We realize now that there is an alternative right now for this stage of AI. So from that standpoint, America is waking up to that reality that you always need to be one step ahead. And there are going to be many steps ahead. We need many more developments that will be coming in the next years, and the innovation will not stop. And that will come from anywhere.
Rashida, the innovations can come from anywhere, but where exactly is Africa? How big is AI in Africa? Where do we stand in the global AI race?
So in the global AI race, unfortunately, Africa is lagging a little bit behind. And, before we talk about AI models and building these things, we need to address more infrastructural issues, right? Lack of energy, lack of access to computers, lack of even upskilling in schools, right? So, a lot of these people that are, doing these incredible advancements in artificial intelligence have started coding probably in primary school or junior high school. So it is very important for our policymakers and our governments to step in and realize the importance of upskilling our youth and making them very aware of what the foundations of artificial intelligence are. A lot of us as Africans are just used to seeing the end product and being the consumer of the end product. But it's very imperative that we are also the architects of some of these solutions. And what I've seen now with Liang Hengfeng, with DeepSeek, is that they took a situation that was meant to hinder them. Obviously being sanctioned, not being able to get the H100 chips from NVIDIA and having to use weaker chips. We have seen them take that challenge and innovate beyond that. And that is what we as Africans also have to do. We have to see the challenges that are ahead of us, infrastructural challenges, and innovate beyond that. And now that we have an open source model that we can use download offline onto our own hardware devices, that is absolutely incredible, right? So now that opens up the use cases, as internet penetration is not something that is not as strong as it would be in India, China, or America. So that is a problem that we have that I believe now with an open source model we can innovate beyond that.
Alfred, let's look at those challenges and the successes here, because DeepSeek's success does challenge the idea that AI is a game only for well-funded companies. And Rashida has talked about the costs here. So how might DeepSeek's emergence impact AI adoption in African countries? Could it, for example, open the door to attract more investments into that sector?
Yes, definitely. I see it now opening the eyes of the investors here locally and making people realize that AI is really an industry that is going, and AI is an industry that they need to tap into. And the very good thing here is the breakthrough of being able to do more with much less is now a very good point to put on the table when you're talking to the investors, so that they see the benefit of investing more in technology research and technology-based startups. So I definitely see this as a very good conversation starter for startups that are trying to raise capital in the AI space here in Africa.
Rashida, your take on this. What sort of unique opportunities do you see DeepSeek presenting for tech startups in Africa?
Well, definitely, it's going to make investors a little bit more interested in investing in African tech startups, because they've seen that you don't need hundreds and millions of dollars to create a rival product, right? And now we've shown that the threshold, the barrier to entry, is much less than what has been expected. So now with a lot less, you can do so much more. But we as Africans also need to think about the implications of selling ourselves so too cheap as well, right? Because we are a large continent, and technology penetration can yield billions of dollars for any company. Successful implementation can yield billions of dollars. So we shouldn't accept pennies. We need to also remember there is this connotation that DeepSeek, we talk about the $5 million, that wasn't just all that it took, right? DeepSeek is a side project for a quantitative hedge fund. So the owner is a billionaire. He invested a lot more than $5 million to build DeepSeek. So there was a significant investment, and the hedge fund was significantly successful already in its own operations. So we need to understand too that we shouldn't let this $5 million number make it seem like, oh, okay, the Chinese did it for $5 million, I'm gonna give an African $1 million and they can do the same same thing. No, we have to understand that there was a significant investment and significant contribution from the company before they were able to do this. While the $5 million to train, to do the final training of the model is absolutely exceptional, and it is something that we should pay attention to, we also need to be mindful that a lot more money went into this. So we shouldn't sell ourselves so cheap.
All right, we're going to take a short break now. When we come back, we will continue our discussion on DeepSeek and its potential to transform AI in Africa. To stay with us. Welcome back to Talk Africa. Let's continue with our discussion. Still with me, Alfred Ongere, Rashida Musa, and Edgar Perez. Edgar Perez, now with this open source model, what do you foresee? Are African developers now able to build their own AI models on top of it?
Well, absolutely. That's the beauty of technology, because now that you are able to access to this code, it's definitely important now to realize that now you can build your own applications. Whenever you think about a new technology, think about what's going to be the final result. When you think that VPCs, the IBMs of the world didn't make that much money, even though they were building the PCs. The OSs, not much. But the companies that build the applications actually made the most impact. And that's the same going to happen in AI. When you think about the applications, now that you have a base that can actually help you to build applications that are going to be much more accessible to the people in Africa and the world, that's where we're going to see a lot of value. People realize that AI is only about helping me create a new email or create a new poem. No, AI is going to be much more. There are going to be many more opportunities to create applications. But now that we have this access to an open source, a high quality product that is going to allow us to create applications, I think the opportunities are going to be limitless for entrepreneurs in Africa and beyond.
Rashida, let me rope you in here in terms of what you foresee as the challenges in the adoption of DeepSeek technologies across the continent. What is your vision, though, for the future of Africa's technology space now with the integration of DeepSeek?
Well, my vision now is that young minds will now have access to a low cost, or free rather, or low cost opportunity to be able to develop really ingenious solutions. I've been a part of a lot of youth training and pitch competitions, and what the youth are really thinking about, from AI computer scanning to identify regional problems with the eyes, from fabric, from scientifically modified fabric to repel mosquitoes. The youth in Africa are bright. They just are lacking the tools to bring their creativity to light. And what is really interesting is that, DeepSeek, they adopted a model of creativity and culture focus. The founder, Liang, says that making DeepSeek open source was a cultural act, because this is how technology works. We stand on the shoulders of giants and build upon that, right? And so this really shifted it away from commercial gain. So I think for the future, I'm very excited to see young Africans shift beyond commercial success and think about creativity, think about passion, and think about impact. So I'm definitely very excited. And now this bridges the gap. I do a lot of AI training, and number one thing that the youth ask me is free AI tools, does it cost money? Because it is hard for a young person, to afford $25 here, $30 here. And now, ChatGPT, $200 a month. Let's be honest, what unemployed youth in Ghana, Nigeria can afford $200 a month, USD, just to use ChatGPT and to be learning and practicing with no commercial value? It would be impossible. So it is absolutely, this is not going to open the doors to so many more bright minds to access this technology, and I'm very, very excited. But it's time that the government truly pays attention to this and continues. Our government should be providing us with open source software to be developing for our country. So I hope they wake up and see this and take that initiative as well.
Alfred, let me draw in on your experience and as founder and CEO of AI Kenya. What do you see as some of the challenges that have inhibited the growth of AI on the continent, and particularly where you are?
Some of the challenges, number one, is the perception around AI. There's a big misconception that AI is here to take jobs, so that creates a scary mindset whenever they're thinking about adopting AI. This is either small businesses all the way to medium enterprises. So that really creates a barrier when an innovator has worked on an AI solution and they're trying to sell it to a company. That is really a challenge to them. The other challenge I would say is lack of intentional investment. So until ChatGPT was released, that's when most companies here locally really started looking at AI and what it can do for their businesses. But before that, there was a very lack of understanding of what the technology was. So even if you want to do a training for an organization, they don't see the importance of that. But right now, when you tell organizations that you want to train them on AI strategies for the organization, you want to train their team on how they can use AI for their business, they are able to listen because they can now relate to ChatGPT, they can now relate to DeepSeek. But I would say that the biggest challenge is lack of investment, particularly for technology startups that are trying to digitize most of the problems we have here in Africa.
Edgar Perez, there needs to be some sort of regulation. From what you know, though, what sort of policy and regulation environment should African governments particularly put in place to help AI thrive on the continent?
Well, in terms of regulation, we need to think about how the applications of AI are going to be implemented in the continent. Obviously, many of these models have been trained with data based in other geographies, other realities. Therefore, when you think about applying the same type of tools to African realities, we need to make sure that there are no biases in this type of data and that the models are going to be realistic and this can be tested too. For example, when you think about somebody applying for a bank loan, we need to make sure that the model is going to provide an explanation in case I am approved or I'm denied a loan. That is something that AI can be helpful with if we have models to explain exactly the rationale of how these decisions are going to be made. So that's where regulation enters into the picture, because usually companies would be interested in deploying these tools in order to save some costs, but ultimately the benefit has to be in the user side, in the customer side.
Rashid, I want to get your view on that. What do you think African governments should do if AI should thrive on the continent?
Upskilling, upskilling, upskilling. That is number one. Getting the population to understand, demystify what is AI, how it actually works. And another thing as well is that there needs to be a cultural shift in, we say here vim. You have to have that drive and that push. I find that sometimes we're very relaxed and we need to have that push. And I know we talk about a lot about, oh, AI is going to take a lot of jobs. We shouldn't shy away from that topic, actually, because it is a fact. I mean, today, we communicate via email, via WhatsApp. Would you rather pay someone to send a message would you rather take the time to write a message on paper and pay someone to send it to someone? No, you'd rather use the technology that's available to you today to be more efficient. So it's important that you become of the group that is useful and efficient, the ones that have the vim, the ones that have the drive. And that is only going to start with upskilling, with an intentional effort to penetrate AI knowledge in all aspects of society. Look at what India did to become the tech giant that they are today. Kids in primary school started learning coding basics. So by the time they were in high school, they have 10, 15 years of coding experience, ready to enter the market and perform. And that is how we have to look at it too. We have to look at this as a long game. We're planting the seeds now in our youth, and we also should not neglect those who have grown up as well. There should be an intentional effort and support to integrate this into SHS level learning, into university level learning in general, regardless of your course of study, and additionally in the workforce. So those are some of my thoughts on that. Right. Is the people. Train the people and we will go far.
Right, we're going to wind up this program now, and I want to get your closing remarks. And let me start off with you, Alfred. What does the future of AI look like now in Africa? what is the transformational potential, and how do you think Africa can leverage on open source AI and the latest developments?
In my view, the future of AI in Africa is purely language. We have still not solved the problem of language. When you travel to other countries, Somalia, Uganda, and you're not speaking English or Swahili or any other language, you are not able to understand each other. So we still have a very massive opportunity to unlock the barrier of language, and this will really accelerate areas such as trade. This is really accelerate areas such as education and innovation. And this will also help us to preserve our cultural heritage, tell our stories, such that we now have more stronger views and more stronger perspectives on what we need to do. So I see the open source breakthroughs from DeepSeek and other companies as a very good foundational layer that will leapfrog innovation and allow Africa to quickly digitize its languages so that we are able to achieve more trade and tap into more investment that we are gaining here locally.
Right. Edgar Perez, yes, let me get your final thoughts here. With the emergence of innovations like DeepSeek, what do you see as the future of AI?
AI, it's still early in the game. So what we're seeing today, the great applications that we see today, for example, ChatGPT or DeepSeek, they're amazing. Yes, we are using these applications every day for many different tasks, and they're amazing. The reasoning models are incredible. We have a chance to use OpenAI and also DeepSeek, and we see results that are incredible that we didn't think about available only a few months ago. Yet, the real benefit of AI is coming later, still later in the game. We still need to do many more things. The AI models of today are only understanding video, images, text, but what about encompassing all this reality of the world? That's what we need to see. So let's be as optimistic about the future. AI is going to be a revolution, but it's going to be felt over the next decades. And Africa is going to be a big part of that, given the fact that if you see the world today, where is the population growing? Only in Africa. Only new talents will be coming up in Africa, and that's going to be very important for the development of technology in the next decades.
Rashida, you have the final word.
I have to disagree a little bit. The impacts are already immense already today. We do have self-driving cars. We do have drones that are doing food delivery. We just in Africa are getting these things so late, right? So the West and the East are going to get these solutions well before we do. So this is where we need to really learn from what DeepSeek did. Previously we looked at it as you needed a large data set, you needed a lot of money to build a successful AI model. We shouldn't actually be thinking of catching up with Silicon Valley, because unfortunately it's just not going to happen at this time. We need to think about carving our own paths, creating AI solutions that are indigenous to us. And I love that you talked about language, because that is number one. If we're talking about AI penetration, we need to meet people where they're at. And number one in that is their language. I feel like 90% of Africans living in Africa today can speak their indigenous language, right? And even those of us who have lived outside, we can still understand our indigenous language to some extent. So it is very important that now we create models that, understand our diversity, and also take these issues like water scarcity, energy consumption, the cost of it, lack of infrastructure, and take that pain and turn it into power. And we've seen it done before, and I think that will be a motivation to all of us.
All right, indeed. Thank you all very much for a lively discussion. But that's all we have time for on this edition of Talk Africa. A big thank you to our guests, Alfred Ongere, founder and CEO, AI Kenya, Rashida Musa, CEO, Walma Africa AI Integration Firm, and Edgar Perez, AI Consultant. Remember, you can be a part of this conversation through our social media platforms on Facebook and X, and you can watch these and other editions of Talk Africa on our YouTube playlist. Do join us again next week for more Talk Africa. From me, Beatrice Marshall, and the team here in Nairobi, until next time, it's goodbye.